We're back. Corn Crazed Social Club. Football season's only, 35 days away. We've got the crew back together. I see a bunch of familiar names. I see a bunch of Go Big Reds. I'm happy you guys are here because today we've got a very special interview. We've got an interview that pretty much the entire Corn Crazed Army has been asking for over a year now. It's been a tough one to get, but he finally got some time. And today I'm happy to introduce Adam Carriker on the show with us. Adam, what's happening?
Not much, man. How you doing, Connor?
I'm doing great. Your background looks awesome. I don't know how fast you got that made, but it looks like it's pretty intricate and detailed. Much better than what I saw when I first watched your content.
Was that back when we had the table, no mic, and I was just recording in my 5-year-old son's room at the time, and it was like an echo chamber, especially if you listen to it in the pickup like I used to?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. Ashley Spitznagel, if you know her art, she did a lot of this. My wife Angie did a lot of this. Okay, and Andrea Schrader, who's helped us over the years with a lot of the stuff that we've come up with. So shout out to all three of those wonderful women, because this is not me. I promise you that.
Well, I like how it looks. I think it's going to be great for your new show. Adam, I was watching you on the World Herald for a long time. And then about 6 months ago, you stopped uploading content. I think the last thing I saw was an interview you did with Garrett Nelson that was really good. You disappeared. Then you contacted me and told me you wanted to do something because the time was finally right. But we didn't go into much detail. So what happened 6 months ago and what's your new plan? Because obviously we've got the Carriker Chronicles coming back soon.
So it was actually 8 months ago. The last thing I put out was in January. So it's almost August. I'm saying 8 months. Long story short, about a year and a half ago, I contemplated going on my own. But I didn't say anything. It's much easier to work with the Herald. I can spend more time with my kids. I just do content. I upload, I record, send it. They do all the work, right? So I got in touch with a few people who know I don't know how else to put it, how people should be monetarily compensated fairly. And they said, Adam, we know what you're making. We know what you should be making. It's well under. Long story short, I had many conversations with the Herald. They reciprocated a little bit. I got nothing but love for them. 7 years. I don't think people realize 7 years. Okay. I was with them. I got nothing but love, nothing but good things to say. Okay. But it just didn't work out. I sent them an email at the end. I'm like, hey, if I go out on my own, this is what I could do. So I don't know if this is what led to it or not, but they fired me. And they did. And I was like, well, that kind of sucks, but let's go light this candle. I was honestly upset for about 10 seconds, and I was like, I've been thinking about doing this for a year and a half, and I think I just poked them one too many times. So, sometimes the silver lining is better than the original anyway, so we'll see what happens. And again, nothing but love for them, just to be clear.
Yeah, I had no idea they fired you, which is actually really interesting since you're one of, if not the biggest Nebraska talk show personality out there right now. And you have been for a long time. I didn't even know you've been doing content for 7 years. I've only really been paying attention for the last couple since that's when I got started. But what a story. All right, so now you've got your own plan. Are you going on YouTube? I know you're on 93.7. Do you have a podcast? What's the Carriker Chronicles about to become?
So actually so with the Herald for 7 years, it's actually 9 years, because the show was luckily on its own before the Herald, and they kind of snatched it as it was growing a little bit. So now the Carriker Chronicles returns August 1st, and I'm going to be releasing 2 shows every week, all the way through August, all the way up until that first week leading into the Minnesota game, where we're going to play good old PJ Fleck. Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to bring other people on, okay? And my first 8 shows are all interviews. And I didn't want just Husker legends. I wanted Husker legends who don't do many interviews. So here's how they go in order from 1 to 8. Prince Amukamara, Roy Halou, and I'm just going to tell you, Prince shares a story I never knew about him and Sue, boxing in the locker room. Roy is one of my former teammates. He's not boring. I'm not boring. Hilarity ensues. Naked foam rolling story, and I'll leave it at that. Coach Osborne, I always have a hard time interviewing him because there's so many questions I want to ask. Yet I don't want to keep him on for hours. So it's a great interview. It's always a challenge of which question do I pick. But he was awesome. He threw the bones at the end, by the way, I might add. Tony White, just interviewed him today. These are all pre-recorded. Dude, I like that dude. He had some great answers. How are we going to tackle? How are we going to rush the passer better? And he's talking about how they're practicing different than he's ever seen practices ran. So tune in for that. Governor Jim Pillen, okay, former Husker, which is the main reason I wanted to bring him on, plus the governor. That's kind of cool. Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator, of course. Tight ends, fullbacks, huddling. What? I didn't know that existed in today's college football world. Larry, the frickin' cable guy. Okay, that dude's always funny. And then Rex Burkhead. And I'll be honest with you, of all the guys I tend to have decent luck getting guys on. He's hard to get on. Big into Team Jack. So if it's not Team Jack, he doesn't always, he likes to be private, but he was pretty awesome. He was probably the easiest guy to interview, just very short, concise, right to the point, great answers. So that's the story for August for the Carriker Chronicles. And then finally, I'll start giving my opinion game week going into Minnesota.
So basically you've got all hitters, and you're telling me the World Herald got rid of you right before you came out with this 8-part series right before the season. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Yes.
So just to confirm, this will all be on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Where to find it? So there's two main spots. So YouTube, I know a lot of folks go iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, all over the place. I just want to keep the Chronicles on YouTube so it's nice and simple. Okay. And my website. The website, carrikerchronicles.com, will be launching August 15th. So the Carriker Chronicles returns August 1st. 2 weeks later to the day, August 15th, carrikerchronicles.com, where you can find the Carriker Chronicles. You can find the Big Ten show that I've been asked to do, and I've been having a blast with my co-host Jeff Turn, where the H is silent. I don't know why there's an H in his name. He never combs his hair and he looks homeless, but we do a great show together. I wish he was here right now because he'd make fun of me for my thinning hair and a bunch of other things. We have a lot of fun. And 93.7 The Ticket as well. Okay, Derek Pearson's doing some phenomenal things there. All that's going to be on the website along, I think I mentioned earlier, Ashley Spitznagel. Your stuff's going to be up there as well. Let's not leave that out, okay? I'm looking forward to that. John Johnston, we're going to have a merchandise store. And there's other things I'm talking about. I'm talking about Husker Hounds, with them putting some of their stuff up there. I want to be the place where all the people who are kind of independent, hey, maybe come here. And I'm not going to make you sign like an exclusive agreement or anything. Let's just work together. High tide raises all frickin' ships, right? So that's kind of how we're approaching the website, which will launch August 15th.
So it's almost like you've got your own giant Husker hub, and you're going to be the brand that helps promote everyone.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Giant Husker Hub. It's just going to be a website that's a lot of fun, where hopefully you can find a lot of interesting things. And there's other stuff I even forgot. Highlight tapes I've been putting out all summer. Those are going to be there. We're going to do a fan of the week section once the season starts. Joe Mixon, who's taken some of the most iconic pictures in Husker football history, wants to do a Where Are They Now with a lot of the former Huskers, because he's also a former Husker. So it's going to be a whole bunch of fun stuff.
Gosh, that sounds fantastic. All right, well, I'm excited for the website. So website's August 1st as well?
Carriker Chronicles August 1st, 2 shows a week all the way up till Minnesota, and then the website is August 15th.
Perfect. All right, well, after you get off here, I'm going to do a screen share, make sure I'm subscribed, and at that point, I'll make sure you guys can find Adam's channel as well, so that we can all go and support the Corn Crazed Army. We'll have your back. There is no doubt about that. So I've got some questions for you, because you're a former player.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
Who's your sponsor this upcoming season? And why in the world would you agree to work with that big guy?
Yeah,
who runs this all the time? Help me out with that.
Yeah, so Adam called me and asked if he could sponsor the Corn Crazed channel. He was a big fan of our audience. He thought you guys are freaking awesome. He gets harassed by you and me to come on our show all the time. And he said there's no better place than to advertise Carriker Chronicles on Corn Crazed. So Adam's going to be a big help, because obviously me being able to run this show throughout the entire season takes money, and Adam's going to help out with that. So yeah, I'm a big appreciative person to Adam at this point, because he is going to help us get through the season. And thank you for Carriker Chronicles and everybody who's a part of their team, because I know it's not just Adam. But yeah, that's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be great to be up on the website. So Adam, as a former player, there's been some conversation on my channel before that people have asked, and I can't give them the answers because I didn't play football at Nebraska. But I wrote them down over the past 6 months, and I have a few that need to get answered. The first one has to do with a curse that recently got lifted. And fans have their own feelings about Solich being let go. And like I said, they claimed it cursed the program. How did the players feel at the time? And do you think it cursed us?
Well, the other thing I want to say as to why I reached out to you about being a sponsor on your shows, you've helped me immensely. I'm really, I'm not awful at talking. I'm still getting better, but I'm awful at technology and YouTube and all those things. And you have helped me immensely. So that was another way of saying thank you. Now, as to your actual question, we weren't happy when Solich was let go. We won 9 games. And when we went on to win 10 games, I think it was Michigan State that we spanked in the Alamo Bowl, and Bo Pelini filled in as the interim head coach. I think what made me the most mad, I found out on ESPN. I'm sitting at my grandparents' house in Aurora playing cards, and I found out on ESPN. So that was the most brutal way. But we won't get too far in the weeds with that. Did it curse the program? I don't think that cursed the program. I think we got away from what had worked for 40 years. Hey, this worked for 40 years, so let's abandon it because for a couple of years we've had to struggle just a smidge. There's unique things about Nebraska. And then we went to an offense that made us just like everybody else. Well, if you're trying to recruit with everybody else, but maybe you don't have beaches or warm weather or whatever you want to say, it might be harder to recruit those people. But we once had a niche and an identity, which we have not had for God knows how long. You need an identity. People need to know who you are. You need to know who you are, and you need to know who to recruit, and you need to know how they need to look in the end. And we haven't had that forever. And I think that's one thing that I've seen so far that I like about Matt Rule. He knows how he wants his offense to look, his defense to look. When I talked with Tony White today, he absolutely knows how he wants it to look. And so if you know how you want the end picture to look, it's much easier to have a process to get in there. We went from fast receivers to big receivers to changing all of a sudden several times over the past 4 or 5 years, who we recruit, how we recruit. So we really didn't have an identity or any clue of how to get to that unknown identity anyways.
Each coach I think they hired had a different identity, and that was the issue. It makes sense. So the curse wasn't really a curse, is kind of the bottom line there, and it did hurt to lose Solich. It's funny, I remember watching that game. I think it was Michigan in the Alamo Bowl that year. I think I was probably 10 years old back then. I remember watching it, but I don't remember all the details, and I do not remember the Solich firing as well as a lot of the people on this channel, but I've witnessed the aftermath. So you played from 03 to 06. And back then you couldn't transfer. You could, but it was difficult. If the portal was around back then, do you think Nebraska would have lost a lot of guys after Solich was fired?
Ooh, that's a question I've never actually been asked. So I think Michigan was my junior year in the Alamo Bowl because I went against the #1 pick, Jake Long, that year, left tackle, and he was a beast. I didn't know who he was. I found out real quick who he was, and then 2 years later, he was #1 overall. That's a good question that I've never been asked. Repeat it real quick. I need some time to think about it. That's why I'm asking for this.
Yeah, of course. So my thought is a lot of players transfer after coach firings, and a lot of guys transfer, especially when they have a strong connection to the coach. And I think a lot of guys did have strong connections to Solich. At least that's my understanding. Do you think there would have been some big name transfers after he was fired if the portal was a thing back then?
I think the thing that hurt the most on offense was we were completely changing our identity. So maybe it would have been a Dion, I'm bringing my Louis with me, get out type situation anyways, because he wanted different players. Callahan did for his offense. Yeah. For the second half of my career, our offense in practice looked way different than the first couple, 3 years under Solich when I was going against it. Defensively, I think the thing that might have irked players was people loved Bo. And I know that's a topic for another day when he was a head coach and got let go. But a lot of the defensive players loved Bo. I do think there probably would have been more players leaving than Nebraska fans would have liked. Some of that would have been schematic and made sense. Some of that would have been because of the way things were handled, and which was kind of unfortunate at the time. So a little bit of a combination of both.
Fair enough. We're going to switch over to NIL. I want to know if you ever got any offers or if you ever saw any players get offered money under the table, because Reggie played in that same era as you, and he actually lost his Heisman over it. And now multiple players go on TikTok and go on podcasts and talk about how they were getting paid back in the early 2000s. So what was your experience?
So I'm in the locker room at St. Louis right after I got drafted. And there's all these individuals, guys from Alabama, Tennessee, USC. And they were talking about all these offers that they had and the money they were getting. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is a bunch of crap. I never got offered jack. Now, it could have been because Nebraska was a clean program. It could have been maybe I wasn't that highly sought after. It's probably a combination of both. I can honestly tell you, I never once got offered anything that I shouldn't have. I think it was a combination of what I just said. Number one, I wasn't incredibly highly sought after when I was being recruited, or even all the way up until my junior year. There were other DNs in that room that were maybe more talked about. And at Nebraska, I did not witness a whole lot of things like what just came out about Northwestern and some of these other accusations with some of the other folks. It was a different time and area for one. I read some of these things and I'm like, yeah, some of that has validity. Some of that's, I don't know, it is a football locker room to a degree. But I can honestly say I think Nebraska ran a clean football program from my experience anyways.
Makes sense. I'm glad to hear that. I think the SEC schools were targeting players, and Miami's. I know there was that Netflix documentary with Miami where they talk about it, and there was the 30 for 30. So who knows? Okay, and my question for you about Frost. I've only got one question about him, but because you've got the former player connections and you're closer to the program than a lot of us, do you think there were any truth to the rumors that he was distracted with off the field activities? Or do you think that he just wasn't the right fit as a coach in Nebraska?
I think it was interesting because when he got hired, I was one of the 99.9% who like, we got our guy. And I sat on my show, and I will readily admit that I was wrong, and that's okay. My wife tells me I'm wrong all the time, and that's because she's right and I'm wrong. And in this situation, I was definitely wrong. I said there's 7 billion people on earth, and there's other people who can do this job, but we got the guy who can do it best. Obviously not, unfortunately. Okay, so I think Scott had a lot of demons from his past, things from 25 years ago, whether it be he didn't like how the fans treated him at first. He didn't like how the media treated him at first. Yeah, I'm just going to bring it up. You got the whole closet situation, okay? Because that thing still angers some of his former teammates to this day. And when I spoke to him, the first conversation I had with him, he brought up some interesting things right out the gate. He brought up the leakage of Pelini after the Ohio State game and the big comeback and how he was worried about trusting people in-house. And he brought up about how a certain former teammate ruined his life because, connect the dots here. And it's kind of one of those things where I don't think he had let go of things from a quarter of a century ago. And when he got hired, it was 20 years previously. And I just don't think he was ever able to let go of those things. I had a conversation with him after the first spring game in the locker room. And, he said something to the effect to me, how he kind of had more free reign at UCF. Okay. And that was the generality of the statement. But the impression I got was that there were things that he felt like he wasn't totally trusting of. And I think it goes all the way back. And then obviously, I think he was distracted. I think he did have other things going on. I think it was interesting because he was hypersensitive about things that were said. Yet, if you listen to him at the press conference, he comes across the exact opposite of hypersensitive at times. It's an interesting combo that I haven't seen in many individuals that I've met in my life. And I wish him nothing but the best. I'm going to say it again. At some point, much like Solich, he's going to come back to Memorial Stadium and Husker fans are going to clap for him because that's what Husker fans do. It may take 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know. But that moment's going to come because Husker fans want nothing but the best for him, even though it didn't go the best for him here.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think this is a great time to interject and say that this is part of the reason that your content is so good to listen to, right? You have access to information that the regular fan doesn't because you're so close to the program. And I think that's why your interviews are going to be so interesting and why I'm so excited to watch those when they come out in the next couple of weeks. So you talked about going against Jake Long, who was obviously a Big Ten tackle. You played in the Big 12 and you ended up as a first-round pick. But if Nebraska would have been a Big Ten team back then, do you think you'd be in a better position or a worse position to get drafted?
There wasn't quite the disparity. Like the Big 12 was seen a lot more even to the Big 10 back then. When you have Nebraska leave and Texas and Oklahoma haven't left yet, but you have A&M leave and you have all these different schools that leave the Big 12, that hurts the perception of the Big 12. And now the Big 10's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I think right now, SEC and Big 10 football players are absolutely graded on a different level than any other conference, and probably rightfully so. Back then, it was a little bit more even. It may have helped me a little. I don't really think so. I think it would have been about the same. I think the only way I could have helped my draft stock was to play better, and that's just what any competitor is going to say. I don't remember the things, honestly, every once in a while I have dreams about my playing days in Nebraska. I can honestly tell you it's never once been about a win. It's about a game that we lost or a championship game or the stupid Oklahoma Big 12 title game or some other game, our Auburn in the Cotton Bowl. And if people are mad that I'm bringing it up, I freaking lived it out. So those are the dreams. Those are the things that I dream about every once in a while, because that's what a competitor thinks about is like, what could I have done better? So I don't think there was that big of a disparity perception wise back then. If you remember, there was a point in time where the Big Ten lost an awful lot of Rose Bowls in the row. And the Big Ten actually wasn't thought of to be that great outside of their own conference because they were struggling in bowl games. So that's one other thing I think people forget about sometimes.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember Ohio State was not the Ohio State we know today, and they did not win when they were at a conference, even though they were always hyped up to be one of the top 3 teams in the country. Switching over to media days, there's been a lot of talk over the past, this has been going on for a year now. A lot of talk about teams switching over. You're not a young guy. You're not an old guy. Usually it's the young guys who are okay with it and the old guys who aren't okay with it, right? So I'd like to know where you stand. You've got USC and UCLA coming to the Big Ten. You got Texas and OU going to the SEC, and now Colorado today saying they're going to the Big 12. What are your thoughts on all of this conference realignment? Do you think it's good for the sport? Are you entertained by it? Do you like that there's something different, or do you miss the tradition and think we got to stick to that?
So it'll be a two-part answer. First, I've always thought winning a conference championship should mean more. When Oklahoma seemed, for years, they won it almost every year. Was it 5 years in a row at one point in the Big 12? And then you had Kansas basketball, who won it 8 years in a row in basketball till it finally didn't happen recently. And then you got Clemson just walking all over the ACC. And USC, hasn't been there for a while, but at a point under Pete Carroll, of course, they were walking all over everybody in the country with Bush and Leinart and all those boys. But I've always liked the model of 4 power conferences with 16 teams. And that's what I believe is best for college football as a whole. Then you have 8-team divisions, 2 8-team divisions. Your conference games are the other 7 division teams. So everybody's playing the same. Nobody, like, we're not playing Ohio State, but Wisconsin's not. You always run into that cross-divisional unfairness every year and who you play and who you don't. And then the 2 division champs meet. That's how I would have thought for years. Now, that's not what's happening. What's happening is 2 conferences are taking over. Okay, that's really what's happening. And what I predict is going to happen in the next 10 years. The Big Ten is going to have 20 teams. Probably not more, because they're only going to take teams that are going to help make them a certain amount of money. And there's only so many of those teams out there. The SEC is probably going to be about the same. Maybe they grab Clemson. Maybe they grab Miami. Maybe the Big Ten grabs Washington, Oregon. I know North Carolina and Virginia are valued highly as well. And then I think there's going to be one conference that's left that's a conglomerate. And I think it's just going to be the Big 12, because the Pac-9 is what it's going to be in a couple of years, ain't going to be around. The ACC, they've already got 7 teams looking elsewhere, called the Magnificent Seven from earlier this summer. They're struggling. I think it's going to be SEC, Big 10, and then the Big 12 is going to be a conglomerate of everyone who's left. Nobody's going to make any geographical sense, but that's okay when you got UCLA going to Piscataway, potentially in November later this year. So I think that's what it's going to end up being. And oddly enough, the Big 12 is going to be one of the 3 that survives. Now, is it good for college football? I'm not a big fan of it. I think I've just accepted it, if that makes, like, it's going to happen whether I want it to or not.
I think that's where I am. If you just accept it and enjoy what you get, because I'm just happy we get any type of football, then you're not as, sad or disappointed, and you don't look back at the tradition and say, I wish I would have had more of it. It's just, I enjoyed it while we had it, and I'll get to enjoy some new traditions. Okay, another question from Media Days. This is specifically about defensive analysts, because I haven't played the big time program, so I don't know how analyst roles work. But Jim Leonard was hired at Illinois the other day because of his financial situation with Wisconsin. He's trying to make sure he gets the most money he can. Today, or yesterday, they announced that he would only be coaching Monday through Thursday, and he wouldn't be there on game days. How involved do you think he's going to be in game planning, since he won't be at the game, and how much of an impact will he make for their defense?
It's going to be tough, because, the D coordinator is going to run the show. The assistant coaches are going to have the next highest say. Obviously, the head coach, can't forget about the head coach, he's going to be limited. It just is what it is. He's going to be limited. And it's one of those things where that guy could have just as easily been the head coach at Wisconsin. Obviously, Luke Fickell's probably a great hire for Wisconsin. I don't want to say that too loudly, because we got to play him every year. But it's one of those things where, he's a guy who should be a D coordinator somewhere, maybe getting a head coaching job somewhere else. I'm glad he's doing something this year. I understand the whole financial situation, but his role is going to be limited, because that's just how it is.
So the analyst role, you would say, is more of a consultant role, less about actually getting into the weeds of what the coordinator would do.
Yeah, and there's a million rules about what they can and can't do anyways.
Yeah.
So that to begin with limits their role.
All right, well, I've gone to my last segment with you, which is in regards to Nebraska's upcoming season. So I did a video the other day where I ranked the position groups, but I wanted to get your thoughts. What do you think the strongest unit on the team is?
It's a good question. There's so many question marks everywhere. It's insane. You could go to linebacker with Henrik and Reimer. You got some guys in the secondary that have stepped up. When I talked to Coach White today, he spoke highly of Malcolm Hartzog, a guy who wasn't even seeing the field and all of a sudden started halfway through the year, and now he's one of the guys that the D coordinator brings up. So you could go to those spots. I'm hopeful that the quarterback position, I know the depth, we got to figure out who the backup is and how that's going to work, but the starting, it'd be nice to say, Jeff Sims in the quarterback position is a strength on the team. The only positions that I feel like I'm like, man, we are good. We're really good. We've got whoever the starter is going to be good. We got a backup and even a third guy that can come in as running back. I think Gabe Ervin's probably going to start. We got a whole camp to go through. Okay, you got Grant, who started for us last year, was number one JUCO player in the entire country. Okay, and if he's not starting this year, that's a pretty good rotational guy or backup. And people forget about Ramir Johnson. When that guy got his few shots here and there over the past couple of years, and he started towards the end of the year a couple of years ago, he looked good.
Multiple 100-yard games from him.
Yeah, so for me, it's running back position right now.
I love it. So then if you had to look at Tony White's 3-3-5 defense versus what we've seen in the past few years with Shenander, are you more optimistic for what we're getting in the 3-3-5?
It's funny, and I'll call myself out all the time. I got no problem holding myself accountable. For years, I've always said, I don't care if it's 4-3, 3-4, as long as you don't throw the 3-3-5 at me, I'm good. Well, here we are running the 3-3-5, and I'm questioning, Coach White about the very thing. Now, admittedly, I didn't know a lot about the 3-3-5. I know it's speed, it's stunts, it's blitzing, it's confusing, it's all those things, and I'm still learning about that particular defense. I just interviewed an All-American defensive player the other day. He gave me an answer, and I'm like, he doesn't know anything about this 3-3-5 as I'm taking my notes. Like, it's just a unique, rare defense. And that guy obviously knows football. I'll spare you his name. But my point is simply this. I'm more optimistic with this scheme. I love Eric Shenander. He's a good dude. We actually just DM'd the other day. He may come on my show on the ticket in the next couple of weeks. So we're on good terms. I'm not going to bury the dude. I'm simply going to say he wasn't aggressive enough. Like, he was not aggressive enough on defense. In a 3-3-5, you have to be aggressive or you're just in the wrong scheme. So that reason alone, just changing that mentality of aggressiveness, I think gives Husker fans a reason to be excited. And I'll continue to learn more about this defense. And honestly, as I learn more about it, it's not really rocket science. It's variations of the 3-4, just with faster guys and more spread out. It's more similar to a 3-4 than a 4-3.
You use that word aggressive. Today in the interviews, Luke Reimer mentioned that he thinks this is an attack-first defense, and they're not waiting for anyone to come to them. They're going after it. They're trying to run all these blitzes to make sure that they put offenses in positions where they'll be in 2nd and long as opposed to 2nd and 4. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting to watch. You did an interview with Matt Rule a few months back after he got hired. I wanted to know what your first thought was when he got hired, and now what your thoughts are that you've got to see him go to work.
Man, that was interesting. Because it was funny, if you go all the way back to when he was let go from the Panthers, I put out a tweet. It's still in my timeline if people have nothing better to do and go look back, because people go back 5-6 years in people's timelines and try to call them out on stuff. So how about you give me props for this? I said, Matt Rule's available. Okay, and then I just left it at that. I didn't know if it'd go anywhere. And then as time goes along, you hear Coach Rule's name coming up more and more, and you hear he's a finalist and an offer was made and they're going back and forth and all this stuff. So I was like, I better start paying attention and learning more about this guy. I'm going to maybe have to talk about him. So when he first got hired, my instant reaction was honestly this. He's the coach that people aren't sure if they want him right now. If you go back to that moment in time, some people were not uber excited. And I myself, I was like, I got to educate myself some more on this guy. And so the more I learn about him, the more I like him, the more I learned. And obviously I know way more now than I did back in December. The more I learn about him from what I've not Googled or researched another human being, it's creepy, as much as I have Matt Rule. Okay. And then talking with him and talking with people about him, he may not have been the exact coach that everybody wanted at the time, but I think Trev Alberts knew what he was doing and why he was so persistent. He may just be, and I think he is, hopefully, potentially, that the head coach and the Nebraska fans needed, because he understands what Nebraska fans want. He understands what Nebraska fans are looking for. Obviously wins and losses, but how they want their team to play, how they want their team to represent their state, because that's what that football program is, a representation of this great state. When you say Notre Dame, people think of football. When you say Nebraska, especially people around me, way more often than not, they think of football. Okay, and volleyball and some of these other sports, all due respect, just in my circles, I'm a football guy, so that's the way it tends to go. But my point is simply this. He gets what Trev wants, and he gets what the fans want. And hopefully, if and when he starts winning games, it's going to look how Nebraska fans have wanted the Husker football program to look for a long time, as long as it comes to fruition, and obviously we're all hoping for that.
Today, he said that he wants to make sure that Nebraska is respected, and that would make this year a successful season. I think that's what Nebraska fans want to hear. I think that's what Nebraska fans need to hear. I think that's just the fact. So I agree with everything you're saying because he backed it up with his statements today. So my final question for you, what would make this year, in your eyes, a successful season? Not wins or losses or getting to a bowl game.
First thing I was going to say is you got to go to a bowl game, go 6-6. And you got to actually play in the bowl game. Don't vote to get out of it. Sorry, I brought that up. It really bothered me at the time. But anyways, I digress. Beyond the wins and losses, it's a lot of the things we've talked about. I think defensively, I think Husker fans, I know I do, I want to see aggressiveness. Okay. I want to see us going forward, not backwards. Like, and you're getting downhill. You're blitzing the gap. You're not sitting there waiting and getting ran over as you make the tackle. Okay. Better tackling is another thing that would make a huge impact. Okay. So I want to see guys getting downhill. In other words, going towards the offensive side of the ball, making the tackles rather than sitting and waiting or going backwards. And if you got to do it via blitzes or just making your reads faster, that works. Better tackling on defense. Offensively, man, it would be nice if I saw some holes up front with the offensive line. Oh, that'd be glorious. I think what I'm describing is physicality. And if you're a physical team, and you win at least 6 games, you're going to earn that respect. So to me, that'd be a successful season, in my opinion.
Don't play on their heels. Get after it. I like it. Adam, thank you for coming on the show. We're going to do another one before the season starts. I want to get more ideas for how things will go, and we'll talk about some hot takes and some other things like that. But until next time, I'm going to let you get out of here and get back with your family. So thanks for coming.
Go Big Red Noise. Remember, throw the bones.
Throw the bones. Everyone, thank you. I'm going to stay on, but anybody who wants to talk with Adam next time can come on, and I'll make sure we get some questions in with him. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to switch over to the full cam. Also, thank you everyone for being supportive and getting on this stream with us today. I've got Denon here with me now. Denon, can you hear me?
What is up?
So next time when we do that stream, I'm going to make sure we can get some questions in for Adam. He had a shorter time today because he's with family. He's on vacation. But I thought that was a really good interview. I was happy with all of his answers. I thought he was super transparent, more transparent than I knew he would be, which I thought was awesome. Cornhusker Corner, thank you for becoming a member. And I know I had a super chat in here somewhere. I saluted it, but I wasn't able to say thank you. I didn't want to cut Adam off right in the middle. But I hope I got some good questions in. In the future, any questions you want for any guests, you can always ask me in the comments, or you can ask me beforehand in the comments on Discord, on Instagram, whatever. I'll make sure I get all of those answered. I'm working on getting more guests for the next, month before the season starts. I know I want to do JD Piquel again. He was a fantastic interview last season. I'm going to do a live call-in show. We'll have John from Corn Nation, so you guys can talk with he and I. But yeah, I'm just getting content revved back up. I know you've been working and out of the loop, Denon, so I want to make sure you're all caught up and ready to go with Nebraska's season. I've been dropping content like crazy. I just recorded right before this interview my offensive depth chart prediction video. I've got the defensive depth chart, so many words, defensive depth chart prediction video coming next week. And then August 8th, I go out of town for 5 days, but I will not leave you without content. I'm dropping my full season prediction, game by game, record prediction video. It's going to be a heavy hitter. I've been working on it. It's a lot, but I'm making sure that all my videos are hitting hard this season. I'm super excited about the opportunity for Nebraska to get to a bowl game. I think that's got to be an expectation at this point. I'm really happy with how Matt Rule's handling the program. I think the fan base is fully bought in. I'm fully bought in. Last year had me questioning a lot of things. I was like, geez, can I continue to make content around a team that I can't trust to do the bare minimum? And that's win the games they're supposed to win. It was emotional last year. This obviously was my job, but it was hard because I had to sit there and try to process what happened in losses to Georgia Southern, try to make money off that, try to find new ways to talk about it because I had to make money on videos. It was just a nightmare. It was emotionally traumatizing. Anyway, this year's going to be a lot more positive. Sorry for not letting you talk, Denon, but I just had to get some thoughts off my chest and get everybody up to speed because we're 35 days away.
Trust me, I know the sentiment, man, about struggling. This was probably the least involved off season I've had with Nebraska football since I was, I don't know, man, 12. I mean, even then, when you don't have content all over the place to ingest, I was reading preseason magazines 2 or 3 times over and over again, reading about all the other teams that I really don't care about right now. There's plenty of stuff to ingest over an off season. and I just was so busy with work and life. It's just been probably one of the least involved. So I actually have some catching up to do, and I know I'm not the only Cornhusker fan out there that's in the same situation. So I do have some questions I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, well,
Just just
really
to kind of
quick,
catch. Just yeah.
I want to answer a couple questions from chat, and I want to acknowledge some
Oh
people in
yeah,
chat,
for
and then I
sure.
want to get to your questions.
Yeah.
CTB on top asked if I was planning on going to other games this year. I actually just booked my flight for Colorado 2 days ago. I booked my hotel 20 minutes outside of Boulder. I booked the rental car. The only thing I don't have is the tickets, which, you know how I like to scalp. So my friend Jake from Chicago is going to go to that game with me. I'm going to make sure we have a Corn Crazed Army meetup. I'm going to do a vlog from that game. I'm going to do my live stream after Nebraska wins that game, probably in front of the Buffalo statue out front. I mean, we're going to have great content from that weekend. I'm excited about it. I'm considering going to the Michigan game. You know, I've been selfish in the past and said that my number one priority is to go to games and enjoy it and take my family and do whatever I'm going to do. Here's the issue. I love making the content so much, and it throws me off to leave for 4 days. And getting to Nebraska is a nightmare for me. It's go 2 flights, then I got to get to Omaha, drive an hour to Lincoln. It's just a whole production, and it makes doing content that week hard. So because I don't want to be selfish, I might skip a home game this year and just stay home to make content. We'll see once we get closer. But right now, Colorado's my only plan. Judy, thank you for being here. I'm so happy to see you. And it looks like a lot of people enjoyed the questions I had for Adam. I planned it out in advance. I made sure I got the best, heaviest hitters because we've been waiting so long for that interview. You guys deserve to get the answers to the questions you wanted to know. Fufu Flame asked about the closet thing. Someone should answer that for him. That has to do with a teammate and I think a girlfriend. And yeah. Let's see here. Cornhusker Corner, thanks. You're right. The corn craze emojis are great. Let's see. Don't get me started. Says, see Josh Perry's bold prediction. Nebraska wins the West. I don't want to get too deep into my predictions, but I have a, I have a, I don't want to say too much. I have a lot of good feelings about this year. I have a lot of reasons to believe that Nebraska can compete in every single game they're playing in, even the Michigan game. Not saying they're going to beat Michigan, but we have a really competitive roster. And now, for the first time in a while, we have a really competitive coaching staff. So I'm excited, and I'm not surprised by Josh Perry's bold prediction. I would not even call it that bold. I'm going to talk about some of the things we learned from Media Day, from other coaches and what they had to say. But the West isn't that tough. The West has a couple teams who are heavy, but outside of those two teams, I think anybody's beatable. Andrew says, what do you think of the Sims interview? I'm going to get to all that and more. But Denon, ask me your questions because I got through chat pretty much.
Well, I was just looking for something to kind of take your temperature, but I think you've pretty much kind of expressed it mostly throughout the show, and then answering some of those questions. One of the questions I wanted to ask is how many games you were going to go to this year, but you already answered that. People are just jacking my questions in the chat, so I'll tell you what. I do have a question. I was thinking about this earlier today, staring at the Corn Craze logo as I was preparing to get on this show, and I was like, Connor, do you like corn? Are you actually crazy for corn?
I mean, I'm corn crazed.
The vegetable?
Yeah, I like corn. Why are you asking me that question?
I don't know. I hate corn.
You don't actually eat corn? Chat.
I don't like it unless it's street corn.
Chat.
Man.
Do I need to kick Denon off the live stream for all future if he's not actually going to eat corn?
Oh man, it's not that good, man. You got to do a lot of stuff to make corn good. I like Mexican street corn's good, Korean street corn's good, but that's like a lot of stuff that just like regular sweet corn or corn on the cob with butter.
Denon, everybody likes corn. I'm not even going to ask the chat if they like corn because we know the answer is yes. Everybody enjoys corn.
Kick him out. All right, I had to start by giving them.
Yeah, everyone wants you out, Denon. No one here thinks that you. Yeah, ban him really immediately. Like corn that much? Yes, everyone likes corn on the cob. Chance says on the cob. Yes, Denon. Come on, Denon.
All right. Well, hey,
okay, Denon.
Get it off my chest.
I've got to tell you some good notes from today. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
first off, Prohaska is going to be a full participant in fall camp. I'm not sure if you remember, but he got hurt, messed up his knee back in 2021. Then he got hurt again last season. I'm not sure if it was against Georgia Southern, probably against Georgia Southern. That was game 3. Anyway, hurt his shoulder. Now he's 100% good to go. He'll be competing with Turner Corcoran for the tackle spot. That's a positive note. Bad news. Marquise Buford Jr. interviewed him last year on the show. Awesome guy, awesome player. He's not going to be ready to compete in fall camp, which means Nebraska is going to have to dig deep for some safety help. You've got Miles Farmer. What was
I
that?
was about to say, does that affect your ranking for the DBs as the top group?
A
'Cause you made
little
your
bit,
video
but
before
yeah,
that,
a
right?
little bit, but not much. It's not going to change them from the top group because the DBs have so much more depth than any other room on the team. You've got Omar Brown, who played a little bit last year. He's the former corner from Northern Iowa. I think he was like an All-American in the FCS. He's going to have to step up because we're now lacking and we're not returning that starter we thought we would be. They said that they want to be cautious with him, make sure he's 100% good to go before they bring him back in. So fair enough. I think he had a really gruesome knee injury. I'm not sure if it was just an ACL, probably a little bit more than that. It was in the Wisconsin game last year, which, what was that? 9 months ago. So understandable if they got to hold him out. But that was the bad news. The good news was we got to hear Rule talk and talk about some of his expectations. He talked about, or he made it clear at least, that he wants people to respect and to fear this team. And if they can't fear them this year, at least they can make them respect them. And when you're respected and you're feared, you start winning more games, obviously. The vibe wasn't that he felt like they're going to win a lot of games this year, and he didn't say they weren't going to. The vibe was just that he wants to get this team back in the right way of thinking, get the fan base back into believing in them, get other teams, prepared to actually have to play Nebraska and not look at Nebraska as a joke. That was the overall sentiment. And I thought that was cool because Reimer was able to back that up. Luke Reimer talked. He talked about their culture, said that Rule's trying to build a brotherhood with the players. I thought that was positive. And he said, Reimer said, be patient. It's year 1. He's obviously not trying to temper expectations, but he said they're competitors and they want to win, but building great things take time. So, take that for what it is. I'd rather have him say we're winning it all this year, but I also understand, not being too cocky this early on. Another thing that I thought was interesting, Jeff Sims said that Xavier Betts or Malachi Coleman is the fastest player on the team. Malachi Coleman, true freshman.
Yeah, I watched that interview or the open interview, whatever you call it, with Jeff Sims, and yeah, there's a couple of things, including his opinions on Xavier Betts that I found to be quite interesting.
I really like Sims. I think Sims is going to be a really good leader. I think he was really well spoken. I can't wait to listen to him. Last year we got to listen to Casey Thompson in the pressers after every game, and he super sharp, super smart, knew everything about football that you could, almost like a football coach. And I'm interested to see what Sims has to say because he seems like a smart quarterback too. But
he seems like he's less camera ready than maybe.
Camera ready? You
Yeah,
mean he's like a good looking guy?
He seems a lot more natural to me. It like honest, right? Like he doesn't seem like he's looked in the mirror and practiced interviews like Casey Thompson
seemed
like
really
did,
polished.
Casey out his eyebrows.
Yeah, so Casey, when he came to Nebraska, looked really polished. He looked like a professional athlete. He looked like it was business, whereas Jeff looks like a college kid who's playing football. There's a difference there, right? Casey is a trained professional by his dad. His whole family is on that kind of path. We're going to create elite talent and get to the NFL or whatever their deal is. Jeff's a normal guy. I think that's the difference. It's not a bad thing. It's just Casey came in with a different energy. So, difference.
I think
for
that
sure.
energy that Jeff has works better for a school like Nebraska that's both a fishbowl and like the only thing, but also a somewhat of a humble state, right? So I think that
more balance.
I think it's a better recipe for his own success.
Not as extreme into the one way of being a professional. Chance asked what the thoughts are on the offensive line. Are we going to be able to protect Sims and let him live up to the potential? It's interesting, Chance. I go back and forth all the time with this idea that the offensive line is going to struggle. They're going to continue to struggle because they have the same offensive line coach. They have a lot of the same pieces. They don't have that much depth. But then I realize, wait, you've got 3 new starters in Prohaska, Nuili, and Scott, who were not here last year. You've got Turner Corcoran and Bryce Benhart both back, who I think both are 2-3 year starters. So because there's so much experience, because we have this new strength and conditioning program, because there's going to be this new scheme on offense, I have hope, I have belief that they're going to be just good enough to be serviceable in a worst case scenario. And if they're serviceable and Sims doesn't get sacked every play, that could be think of what? Adrian Martinez 2018, when he was a true freshman. He threw for 2,600 yards. He ran for another 600 something. He looked really good the entire way through, at least once we got to like actually the entire way through, Adrian looked good. He's got weapons like Divino Zigbo and like Stanley Morgan Jr., at least the equivalent to their talent. And yeah, I think Nebraska's in a really good position with their offensive line. So who knows if they're going to be able to protect him as well as they need to be able to prevent injury or to make Nebraska an 8-win team. But are they going to protect him enough to let him live up to more than what he did at Georgia Tech? Yes, because at Georgia Tech, he wasn't that efficient. I don't think he ever hit 60% completion. I don't think he ever threw for more than 1,800 yards. He never ran for more than 500. So yeah, I think that we're going to get to see more out of Sims than Georgia Tech ever got to. And if things get really crazy, then we're going to see Jeff Sims potentially leave for the NFL after 1 year. Just saying.
Well, we're going to see it in game 1 too, because they're going against Minnesota. Which is, before you get to this next question, my next question: what are you? How do you feel about this? This is 3 years in a row now, opening up against a Big Ten opponent.
I really enjoy it. I personally, it's my favorite thing.
You like it?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so great to see a good game and not watch some garbage, North Dakota, or who else they play in the past. They would play San Jose State. I don't want to watch a 52-7 blowout. Although Nebraska would never
that in game 1 than game 2.
No, I'd rather game 1 get the season started with a huge matchup. I live for the biggest moments, and this is a huge moment. This is a season-defining game. If Nebraska beats Minnesota, it completely changes the trajectory. It takes Nebraska from being a potential 6-win team to being a potential 7 or 8-win team. If Nebraska beats Minnesota, that's a statement. That is a we coming, no Dion. That is a we're going to go and run the table up until we get to Michigan. And we're going to be playing as a potential top 25 team in our own stadium. I mean, it's for all the marbles, I guess we can say. So I would much prefer this.
I just don't like the risk.
I know
that, like what the loss is to the season.
But the no risk, no reward, right? And the reward outweighs the risk. There's a question from Nick. He says, does Malachi Coleman play enough games to not redshirt this year? Nick, he's not redshirting this year. The receiver room is not deep enough. I did the depth chart prediction video. I have Malachi Coleman in my depth chart prediction video. That'll be out tomorrow, I think. And they can't afford not to play him. You look at the room, you have Xavier Betts, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, Billy Kemp, Josh Fleeks, Malachi Coleman as your top 5, right? No, who's the 6th that I'm missing? Oh, Marcus Washington. So if that's your top 6, who's behind them? Some freshmen. I honestly think it's all freshmen behind them. I'm thinking right now off the top of my head, Jaden Doss will play. Yeah, it's all freshmen. So no, he's not redshirting this year. He's going to be playing. I mean, unless Nebraska doesn't throw the ball. If Nebraska doesn't throw the ball and they run it a ton, maybe then they won't need to run 6 receivers. But in reality, he'll have to play in every game. Dominique says, who will be the statistical leader at receiver and your stats for that player? That's a good question. I gotta do more research before I can answer that one. That'll probably be in my preseason predictions or hot takes. Don't Get Me Started says, IGC, the receiving leader this year. I wouldn't put it past him, honestly. Betts, Washington, IGC, and Billy Kemp all have the potential. The problem is we don't know what their limits are, how high they can go, right? With Betts, we only saw him play for 2 years. He was super young, and he was playing in the Scott Frost offense that struggled. IGC only played in 4 games, and he was really punished after that first game. Before that in New Mexico, he had a couple big years. So what's his limit in the Big Ten now that he has, a better build? He's obviously got better training and coaching, and he's going to have a better quarterback. I don't know how high he can go. What's the ceiling? And then you look at Billy Kemp, multiple 500, I think 600, 700 yard year back to back. So any of these receivers could pop up.
I find
And
Betts to be the most intriguing with, clearly there were issues with the previous staff. I mean, clearly, right? He left the program, right? So I'm excited to see, him
well,
possibly without issues, what we get,
you know
what we
why?
see them get out, and
Do
what
you
we
know
can get
why
out of him.
Betts is the most intriguing one now? Betts is really intriguing because we know that Matt Rule loves speed. And if Betts is the fastest receiver, the fastest player on the team, then Matt Rule is going to want to use him as a weapon any chance he gets. So that means he probably won't come off the field much. And if he doesn't come off the field much, that means we're going to see him get some targets. Gary Sharp, or here, Huskerhead said, Gary Sharp asked Rule today to name someone to watch. And he mentioned IGC on offense and John Bullock on defense. Yeah, I mean, we've heard IGC's name mentioned multiple times now in the offseason. I was already bullish on that dude last year before the season even started. I watched his highlights coming from New Mexico State. Okay, I made a whole video where I talked about all the transfers Nebraska needed to target. And before he even had a Nebraska offer, I said, they need to get IGC. They got him. I said, he's going to be a factor this year. He was a factor in the first game. Then he obviously disappeared because I don't think he had the right relationship with the coaching staff after he had that fumble, which was a little bit ridiculous since it wasn't even a real fumble, but whatever. I think it's exciting that we have all these receivers with so much potential and we don't know where they're going to go. Marcus Washington is the only one where you can look at it and see, okay, we've seen what he can do. We've seen what he has done now, right? Outside of that, Billy Kemp, Betts, and IGC could all take it to the next level.
Well, and Casey Thompson isn't going to be slinging the rock at him, so who knows what that means.
Yeah. Well, there's another thing that someone just asked. Ardwin said, do you think the scandals going on at Minnesota will affect the potential outcome for game 1 this year? I wanted to talk about this because
I hope so.
I know a lot of people don't like PJ Fleck. What do you think, Denon? Do you like PJ Fleck or no? PJ Fleck guy, not a PJ Fleck guy?
I'm pre-surgery PJ Fleck, not post-surgery.
You don't like his
PJ.
plastic surgery face. So here's the thing.
I'm kidding. He's good enough. He's a decent dude. I really don't dislike him.
Here's the thing. I know we all love to say we hate PJ Fleck. He's corny. He has all his slogans. He's annoying. I don't know what it is. I'm attracted to the guy. No homo. I think he's got the right energy. He's super positive, at least publicly. And he seems like the type of guy you'd want to go to battle with. He seems like the guy who would have your back, and he's going to try to build a camaraderie within his team that gets shit done. And it's worked to this point. He has multiple 8-win seasons. Minnesota does not look like the Minnesota of old. This is a totally new Minnesota with him. So people have all their comments about him, but I don't really agree with them. To that point, I was listening to his media press conference today. And the reason I listened to his was because I wanted to wait and hear that question. What's going on with the scandals at Minnesota? We heard people talking about the locker room and the culture and blah, blah, blah. I thought he answered it perfectly. One of the complaints was about the Fleck Bank. And what the Fleck Bank is, this is the way he described it. It's like an analogy, a life lesson analogy for investing your time into the program. And the more you invest into the program, the more you get out of the program. So whoever made their reports about him and trying to slander the Fleck Bank and slander the things he does in this program, I think they're coming at it with their own personal animosity towards the program or their playing opportunity or whatever issues they had with Fleck, and they didn't look at it for what it actually is. I think, what did he say? There were legitimate ways to contact the administration if there were issues with inside the football program, and I think he said there's been zero contact with that legitimate administrative contact. So if you're not going to contact the right people and claim a real issue, then why are you going on social media or trying to go to a news outlet and, talk about these baseless rumors? I think that's what happened. Someone had a grievance and they didn't go about it the right way. And because they didn't go about it the right way, it probably means it's not true. There's a lot of woe is me. There's a lot of victim BS in our society. And I'm quick to, I don't want to say trust, but I'm quick to question whether or not it's true when some of the figureheads who are being accused of these terrible things act like pretty stand-up and solid guys. Another example is, what's his name? Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. Someone said, make a reaction. What you think about what happened with the hazing stuff at Northwestern? I don't know. I don't care, because Pat Fitzgerald to me, is an upstanding guy who's not going to lie about everything that happened. And his reaction to what did happen was that he didn't know enough about it. And that if he would have known more about it, he probably would have tried to step in and change things. But because he didn't know about it, because it was probably a player-led hazing, it was something that was going on kind of in the dark. It was never brought to his attention that it was something that was so bad that it needed to be addressed. Why am I going to sit here and judge Pat Fitzgerald, who's been upstanding in every other aspect of his career? That's the way I look at all these coaches. And yeah, I just think people like to be victims and they like to cause problems and be dramatic. And this is the good news. Matt Rule just
Every
came
college
into
kid
the...
has a platform too to immediately
Yeah,
air out
everyone
whatever feelings
can
they have.
everyone can get all of the attention they want because you're a college football player and you can go and get all the national media people to trash talk the person you don't like who either didn't play you, didn't give you a fair shot, if you were bullied, whatever the situation is. I just think people don't know how to handle their grievances the right way.
Well, look at what happened with Breakfast Gate. You familiar with Breakfast Gate?
Yeah, there's another prime example going on Twitter and talking come on, and then they end up
Just
making
immediately
amends.
going right there without context.
And then
that
they make
the training
amends.
table was shut down
Yeah.
for repairs, and that all teams were responsible for catering in their own breakfast or not. Right? It was up to the teams.
Yeah.
To communicate that out, and it just.
And Matt Rule fixed it like that. He went and gave them food, and I think that was in the football facility. He hosted all the girls, gave them food, made kind of a joke out of it because the adult in the room knows how to handle it. And I think all of these Big Ten coaches, for the most part, not all of them, you always have somebody who could, be a little questionable. You had all the stuff that happened at Penn State, and we thought those were all adults in the room, and clearly they weren't. There were some issues, but in general, with cases like this, I think that guys are going to step up and they don't want to get in trouble. They understand how real cancel culture is, and they don't want to be the next victim of it, right? It costs them their job. They don't want to deal with that. Anyway, I was just going to end that on, I think Nebraska's in a really good position because any chance that there would have been any drama with Frost or the old administration has now gone out the window because you have a new coach in who has shown that he is the opposite of all of the nonsense being spewed from these other Big Ten West schools. Nebraska is the furthest school to be near a scandal. And I think that's really positive at this point. So at least we have something good to say about Nebraska, even though we aren't good at football yet.
He did comment that the way he structures his program, and I feel confident in what he said, it's just not as vulnerable to that, or at least the way he structures it, the intent is it's not as vulnerable to those kinds of things, scandals, that kind of stuff. So I have faith in what he said. I think it sounds pretty genuine, so I feel pretty comfortable. I certainly feel a lot better than I did for the last 4 years or 5 years, whatever it was, under Frost, where at every offseason there was something. Right? Something.
Well, there was just a lot of players who would come out and complain, right? They'd tweet something weird. The last one was Tyreek Johnson wanted to do an interview about all the issues at Nebraska. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it too much. It's just not worth the energy.
But it's not just players. It was analysts being too close to the team and this and that and all these little things that felt like you were constantly like, oh God, whatever.
It's always
like
something.
That was the preseason publicity was these weird like micro scandals, I guess you could say.
Jim Harbaugh has another scandal right now. I don't even look into these because I just care so little because they don't affect my life. They aren't going to affect the football season really. Jim Harbaugh is now suspended for the first 4 games of Michigan season. Recruiting violation. I don't know. Someone in the comments can tell me. Yeah, his first game back this year is going to be against Nebraska and Lincoln. And the first 4 he cannot coach in because of some violations. Who knows what it is? But
Well,
whatever.
He's there just in time for us then, I guess, right?
Yeah,
that's nice.
the timing line.
So they'll have issues all the way until that game. They'll be nice and strong,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll miss a beat without him on the sideline, to be honest with you. They got a good enough run game. They'll be healthy.
Foo Flame says that Matt Rule said he would still send his son to play for Pat. Did he really say that? I'd love to see where he said that because I agree. Who wouldn't? That guy's legit.
I'd love
Pat
for my
Fitzgerald's
kids to play
freaking
for
awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so I've got some more notes from Media Days. A funny one. This is a funny one. I don't know if you saw this. Yesterday, Ryan Day was talking, and he said that he was going to auction the first play of the Indiana game for charity. Going to auction it off, literally sell the first play, but that he decided not to do it because he didn't want to get a violation. didn't want to get suspended or anything. But how
Yeah, that
ballsy.
fits in like some kind of gambling rule, right?
No, I mean,
I'm
I don't know
I'm
where it would
sure.
fall, but it's more so just the fact that you're not taking the game seriously. You have such little respect for Indiana. God, it's so disrespectful. You have such little respect for Tom Allen in Indiana that you're willing to let a guy off the street call your first play. That's
I'm sure
crazy.
you put like a handful of plays in front of him and you say, "What play do you want?" You
Still,
know,
it's
and
the
he would
principle.
do that to a lot of teams too. He would do that if we were their first game. He
No,
would do
but he
that if it
wouldn't
was
do it. He wouldn't have done it in the Georgia game. He wouldn't have done it against
no,
Michigan. He wouldn't have done it
no.
against Penn State. He's doing it to be disrespectful, which I thought was funny. I'm not knocking him for saying it, but it is savage. If I'm an Indiana fan, I'm pissed because the worst part is Indiana has 0% chance to beat them. So it's just like, ugh, there's not even this revenge factor involved. It's just like, we have to take this beating. We're getting kicked in the face and we're accepting it. Time to switch teams. Throw your Indiana shit away. Go get Michigan or something and just hope that Michigan beats Ohio State again because that's the only way you're getting revenge. God, the disrespect. All right, go to Wisconsin. So, Fickle talked about his a successful season. Sorry. So, let me tie it back to Matt Rule. So, Matt Rule, we all saw the interviews. Matt Rule was so, I don't know, humble in his season goals, and he's so genuine and real and doesn't talk about wins and losses. It's all about culture and it's all about doing things the right way, right? Luke Fickle is the complete opposite. Now, keep in mind, Wisconsin is a completely different program from Nebraska. Wisconsin is off multiple Big Ten championships and Rose Bowl appearances. Wisconsin has multiple All-Americans returning. They have the best running back in college football. You can't compare the two programs, but it's just a totally different vibe. So he said that his objective, right when they asked, objective is to play for a championship. When you play your best ball at the end of the year, you play for championships. So we need to basically grow as a team throughout the year, get consistent, and get to a championship game. And obviously that's cool to say and everything. But when you're a first-year coach, you would think you'd want to talk about building your culture the right way and getting guys on your program and everything else. Like I said, it's a mix of the program's already built for him, and he just needs to alter a couple little things. But his mentality and mindset is much more on winning football games as opposed to Rule, who's about building programs. I don't know. Something I noticed. Not a problem, not anything negative on Luke Fickle. I just wonder if Luke Fickle would have been hired at Nebraska, would that have been his same response? Or would he have said, Nebraska's a shit show that I have to fix? I have to get all these players into a brotherhood. I have to get them to buy into the program and the culture, and then we can talk about winning. Or does he come and say, no, there's enough talent on this roster. Scott Frost screwed everything up, and we're going to win tomorrow. I don't know. But
at least he didn't come in and say that the rest of the Big Ten's defense is going to have to adjust to his offense.
Yeah. At least he didn't say that. At least he didn't say something dumb. But those were the main notes. Those were the main notes from Media Day. There's a bunch of other coaches who talked, and it's all kind of fluff. You know, I got to listen to the coach at Illinois, Ryan Walters, or not Illinois, at Purdue, Ryan Walters. I got to listen to Brett Bielema at Illinois. You don't learn too much from Media Day, unfortunately. You just get some snippets and tidbits here and there. But I'm glad that we got any sort of football, and I'm glad that we got to learn something new because, like I said, we're 35 days away. It's coming up freaking quick. It feels like time flew. It's going to fly faster, I promise you, because now we've got content rolling out. You're going to start to see a lot more on ESPN. You're going to see it from all the Twitter people. It's going to be firing off every single day. So this next month is going to fly by. Leo says, hot take, will Ryan Day get fired if he loses to Michigan 3 years in a row? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't make those decisions. I don't think he would get fired if he won 11 games and only lost one to Michigan. That would seem a little bit extreme. Maybe if he lost to Michigan and to Penn State and then dropped one to Maryland or something, then there's a chance. But yeah, I'm not sure.
To get fired this year, he'd have to lose to Michigan and at least 3 other teams.
Yeah,
like
I agree with you.
He'd have to, and even then, they'd have to be like, it'd have to look bad.
Yeah, you'd have to look terrible.
He's got a decent leash.
This is the thing. To lose your job after everything that Ryan Day's done, all the professional athletes that he's produced, the tight program he's run, to lose your job, you'd have to show regression in your program. And losing one game to a top 5 team, is not regression in your program, it's not easy to win these games, right? So, especially, he doesn't have a new quarterback this year. No, he's not getting fired from Michigan. What am I talking about? Mitchell says, do a collab with Backseat Sports. You know, we wanted to do one last year, and it was a terrible time because the views were just tanking at some point last year when Nebraska wasn't winning, and I opted against doing a collab at that point. So maybe this year we can get back and do something together. I'll reach out to him. We have each other on Discord. Melissa, thank you for the $2 super chat. Thank you for everybody who's been supporting, by the way. I want to give a quick thank you. I know a lot of our members are in this chat. So all off season, you guys didn't cancel your $2 or $3 a month membership. You stayed supporting the channel, which I greatly appreciate. And a lot of people ask me, how do I support the channel? Well, those memberships are a huge way. Another huge way to support the channel is to share my content. The reason Corn Craze is so exciting for all of us to be a part of, we've got 388 people watching right now. During season, we're going to have streams with 5, 6, all the way up to 1,000 people. I can guarantee it. The streams are so fun because they have so many people communicating with each other, and it's this giant, friend group. Think of it that way. So if you share the content with your friends, we expand the community. I can make more content. I get more ideas, and it's just more fun for all of us to be a part of. So those are the ways you can help grow the channel. Steven, thank you for the $10 super chat. You said, have you looked at the roster picks? Some are old versus new. Hold on one second. Let's pull it up. Then I'm going to close out your screen for a sec, and I'm going to check out Nebraska's roster picks. Let's go to the screen share. Nebraska roster, right? Steven, I'm pulling it up just for you. Accept. It always wants me to accept cookies. I'm so over these desktop websites. It does it on my phone too now. Picture view. Okay. Screen share. I'm coming, Steven. Don't worry. Window capture. Bang. All right, let me minimize your chat so we can see. All right, you're saying some pictures are old versus new? Right now, they all look new. Marcus Washington's old. But I don't know. I think for the most part, they just got to get him switched over. Maybe Marcus Washington was sick on picture day. Roster pictures look good. I like those ties. Jacob Herbeck, he's old, I think. I can't wait to get the updated numbers. Oh, and we got the pictures of the new guys. Eric Fields is on campus. There's Jaden Doss. I didn't realize he had the two-tone hair. All right. See, it's interesting. I talk about these guys. I do all these research, take notes on them, but I don't even know what half of them look like yet since there are so many new ones. So I got to actually look through these pictures so I can put a face to the name. Nice. These pictures look good. I'm really excited for the new numbers. This whole looking at number 10 as our start. Nuh-uh, not for me. I want to, wait, let me get back to Denon. I want to see who's going to get the single digits. I'm not sure who's going to get a single digit or who is going to get offered one, but I think there are a few guys who would deny them. I wonder who would deny it. Like an Anthony Grant, maybe, if he wanted to keep 10. Although I do think Anthony Grant is going to give 10 to Sims. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. I think Anthony Grant would settle for something different, and Sims really wants it. I don't know. It's too early. We've got 3 more weeks until we got to talk about single-digit numbers. But it is a question I get all the freaking time, so it's always running through my head. Did you know how that single-digit number thing worked, Denon? So,
No.
So Matt Rule stripped all the players of their single digits. Everyone gets a normal number. And when we get to the end of fall camp, Matt Rule will reward the toughest 10 players, or I guess it would be the toughest
Unless you're giving
20, because you can give to the defense and the offense. So he'll reward the toughest players with a single digit number, and then they'll have the opportunity to accept or deny, obviously, and I would assume it would go to the next player. So for right now, Marcus Washington wore 7 last year, but today he's wearing number 16. And if he performs and is one of the toughest players in fall camp, he'll be awarded his number 7 or whatever other single digit he would want. So that's how it's working. Let's see here. Chance says, if Connor got Matt Rule to do an interview on his channel, he would probably start getting calls from networks. Listen, I can promise you, like, when I meet Matt Rule, he will do an interview with me. I just need to meet him in person. I'm going to meet him. I don't know how soon. I don't know if I'll meet him Colorado week. I don't know if I'll meet him when I go to a home game and schedule a tour at the facility when he's in the office. I'm going to meet him. And I do agree. When I get some bigger interviews and people start to recognize the Corn Crazed brand and Connor Hayden, I do think big things will come. But, you know, I don't know. I'm not really too worried about it. I'm more worried about you guys just making fun content right now. Don't get me started, asks. And thank you for being a member, brother. Like I said before, I really appreciate it. If you could trade one game this year for a different Big Ten team, which game for which team and why? That's a great freaking question. For this, I have to refer to the schedule because I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay. I'm keeping Minnesota. Gosh, if I got to keep Michigan. I can't get rid of Michigan. It's going to be a fantastic game, I hope. Maybe if I was asked this question after the Minnesota game, and if Nebraska wasn't competitive with Minnesota, then it would be Michigan. But right now, we're going to leave Michigan. I would say swap Michigan State. I would get rid of this game off the schedule because for whatever reason, I think Michigan State's going to be sneaky. I think they have enough talent to compete with Nebraska, and that being a road game in November, you know, it's not ideal. Oh, wait, my chat's not in the right spot. Now my chat's in the right spot, but I don't like that. Go back. Screw that. Okay. Anyway, I would say get rid of Michigan State, and I would take an easy game here, like a Rutgers on the road, because then Nebraska would have a legitimate chance to win 8. And I think it would be awesome to see Nebraska win 8 games. So that would be my pick. Either Rutgers or Indiana, either one of them on the road for Michigan State, because I just know those teams can't compete with Nebraska. Just being honest. Wait, there you are. Let's see here.
I was about to reply. Someone asked if we were cousins.
You and I?
Yeah, Minnie Hunt.
Minnie says...
No, we're actually identical twins.
Yeah, Minnie, we are not related in any way. You know how Den and I got connected, actually? Den and I got connected because he reached out to me on Discord, and he offered his services to me. He said, look, your content's great, but you should have a live stream that is efficient, that is technically dialed in, and that I can actually watch. I was like, ooh, wow, harsh. I said, okay, Denon, help me build my live stream. So Denon and I got...
quite how it went.
Maybe a little bit less aggressive and more of an offering than a telling you what to do. I like to tell it my way, though. Anyway, so Denon said, when you get back in town, turn on your computer. Let's get this set up the right way. I said, fantastic. He got me set up with a proper mic. He taught me how to mix my audio so that it didn't sound like shit because it used to. He made sure that I had a proper live stream set up through OBS since I had no idea how to run that on my own. Then he went and cleaned out my whole computer. Listen, Denon has done so much for Corn Crazed, you guys wouldn't even know, because the Corn Crazed live streams would not be where they are without Denon, because I didn't know how to do any of it. I was screwed it all up. I was already screwing it up. Anyway, shout out to Denon. No relation to me, except for being a Corn Crazed Army member. Literally, he was just like you guys in the chat. He came onto the show for the first time. Then his friends started hitting him up saying, whoa, 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 Denon, you're on Corn Crazed. And Denon's like, yeah, what's up? I'm the AV guy and the co-host. So yeah, that's how Denon and I got connected. Minnie and I, for those who don't know, Minnie and I got connected in Arizona. We actually went to coffee when I was there for, I think it was Super Bowl weekend. We hung out. She gave me some of her ideas for the channel. You know, she's a Corn Crazed Army super fan. She's like in every single chat. She makes sure that she comments all the time on all the videos. I'm super appreciative of Minnie. So because she's been such an active member in our community and she's been so supportive, I met up with her for coffee for about an hour and a half or something like that. We talked about all of her ideas and she gave me some really good ones. So Minnie, I appreciate you as well. We have a lot of great Corn Crazed Army members, and I keep meeting more and more of you guys because when I travel to these games, you guys end up walking up to me and you're like, oh, let's go to the bar. Let's do whatever we're going to do. And I end up making friends. So the reason I started Corn Crazed was to have a community and a friend group that I could talk to about Nebraska football, because in Hollywood, there are a lot of homeless people, but there are not many Nebraska fans. It's just a fact. So now I found a place where I could have conversation with other Nebraska fans. And it turned out to be pretty damn good because there are hundreds of you, hundreds in my comments and DMs wanted to talk about shit every single day. Mark says, can you do some research? Can you do some research and make a video about all the rule changes for 2023 and who it favors and how it impacts Nebraska? Yeah. Are there many rule changes? I think I saw 3 or 4. I could do some research. I could talk about that. Let me take a picture of it so I don't forget. Hang on. I'll add that into a video. I know that could be like a little 1-minute segment. All right. I got your question, Mark. I'll make sure to do my research.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Let's see.
I'm interested to know. I don't even know all the rule changes.
I know a couple of them, but not off the top of my head. Oh yeah, Michael. I met Michael at a bar in Omaha. I met like 8 people one night before the Wisconsin game. We had a little meetup. That was pretty awesome too. So Michael's another Corn Crazed Army member I got to hang out with. Discord. For those who aren't in the Discord already, it's in the description right now. You just go to the link, click it. You can join our Discord group. It's free. It's got like 750 people in it. I release all the content there so you can see when I upload it. And we have a bunch of conversation there about the season, about updates, about anything that I hear about or anything you guys hear about. It's just a group community where we all stay up to date with each other and don't have to wait and talk in the comment sections or on the live streams. So if you want to join the Discord, it's free. It's easy. You just click the link in the description. Thank you guys for making me plug that because I always forget to. Boyd says...
They're asking what was on your computer.
There was nothing on my computer. It was blank. That's why I had to have you come and save me.
They must think I was like cleaning out viruses. And then Husker Corner suggested that there were pictures of PJ Fleck.
Yeah. If you go to my Canva, it's gross. Because Canva is where I cut out all my images of players and of coaches and everything. So my Canva has like 9,000 images of players, PJ Fleck, Pat Fitz, every single coach, every single pose you could possibly imagine of them. Yeah. My Canva's crazy. If someone jumped into my Canva, they'd be like, this guy's got this sick obsession with these men. I'm like, yeah. Obsessed with these guys.
Look at all these buff dudes.
Yeah. Let me see here. Ardwin says, me at the Wisconsin game last year is a highlight. Still think about it fondly. Oh, Ardwin, were you the one who walked up to me? So Ardwin, I don't know if this was Ardwin, someone at the Wisconsin game, I was sitting with my mom and sister and we're just watching the game. It's like the 3rd quarter. Dude walks up, said, I found you because you posted on your Instagram story where you were sitting. Like I just took a picture of the stadium, my view. And 30 minutes later, dude walks up, sits next to me. He's like, yo, I found you on Instagram. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I geolocated you because I could see where you were sitting and I figured out where you were. And now I'm here. I thought that was pretty cool. A little creepy, but cool. Cool.
Yeah, no, that's creepy. That's just
No. We can be creeps here for each other. We're all homies here, so it's all good.
It's cool. I'm just kidding. The last time I tried that, I was called a creep, but there's more story behind it.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I made that up.
I've
never.
Doesn't sound like something you would do. Anyway, guys, what have we been on here for? Over an hour? Yeah. I've got to get out of here.
20, almost.
It's been a great live stream. I really did this just for the Adam Carriker interview and to warm myself up for other interviews for these next, 4 weeks before the season starts. I've got the depth chart predictions coming out. One will be out, let's say tomorrow. The next one will be out 3 days from then. Then I have the schedule prediction, the record prediction. I've got 3 videos I did in the last 2 weeks. So you can go and get caught up on those if you haven't seen them yet. Make sure you like the video to support the channel because it means a lot to me when you do. And actually, I wanted to make sure that I'm subscribed to Adam's channel. Hang on. Let me go to YouTube. I'm going to share screen so you guys can see his channel. Share screen.
And that website was the 15th? Is that what I heard? Correct?
Huh?
His website, the 15th.
Oh, I am subscribed. His website is the 15th. His channel launch is the 1st. So he's got some videos up here now. And he's got 3,630 subscribers. So...
Oh, that's not enough.
We'd love to get him revved up. He's got a bunch of highlight videos here. I've connected him with a couple editors, and so they have done a fantastic job at getting him highlights if you guys want to go and watch those. And yeah, his content's going to be incredible. I just know because everything he's done in the past has been really good. So make sure you subscribe to the Carriker Chronicles. He's got a legit show coming, and I will be watching it. Anyway, Denon, thank you for being here. I already switched back to full screen. I'm going to give my little outro here. Like I said, send me any names you want me to interview so I can reach out to them now. And anytime you have questions for any of my guests that you know are coming on, make sure you fire them off to me. With all of that, I'm going to see you guys in the video soon. Stay blessed. I know it's nighttime over there in Lincoln or wherever you're at. So I hope you have a good night, and I'll talk to you later. Go Big Red.